Hitchcock Truffaut, not the book, but a 2015 documentary based on this very famous book. Now, the book with this title will be found in the bookshelves of every film major and certainly every director. And I just found out about and watched the 2015 documentary based on this book. How meta is that? It isn't just about the book, but it features interviews with great directors talking about the importance of the book, what it meant to them, how they came across it. And this includes greats like Martin Scorsese, Paul Schrader, David Fincher, Wes Anderson, Richard Linklater, and Peter Bogdanovich. Notably absent was Brian De Palma, but I found out why at the very end. Now, for those who don't know, the book was simply the recording of a week-long interview between the director, Francois Truffaut, and Alfred Hitchcock about 1960 or 62, where they went over each and every one of Hitchcock's films, except the four he filmed after the book was written. Now, in 62, directors were being treated like artists for the first time in a while, and Hitchcock was respected but not taken too seriously as he was simply too successful, and even dabbling successfully in television at the time, which made him considered too studio also to be considered success, to be thought of as a great director. Truffaut even says that in France, older directors considered him to be a light entertainer rather than a serious artist, and he wanted his book to prove that this simply wasn't the case, that Hitchcock deserves to be considered the master, as he was sometimes called, throughout the 30s, 40s, 50s. Now, perhaps an equivalent snobbery is lobbied today against Steven Spielberg or maybe Stephen King as a writer. Me personally, I own a copy of this book after a film student in college named Dan, was his last name, told me about it and pointed out in all the student films that this book was always in the background or on a coffee table. And I picked up the book myself after looking through it. Now, I read the appropriate section of the book right after I see a Hitchcock film. Between 2016 and 2018, I caught maybe 20 of Hitchcock films on Turner Movie Classic before Comcast took that channel away from me. I had seen some of his most famous work before, but definitely not all 40-plus films he had made. Now, I'd say about a third of this documentary is Hitchcock's own words for the interview describing his work. Another third are the great directors talking about what made Hitchcock great, which moments of his films really stood out to them, Hitchcock's influence on them and on the rest of film. The rest of the time is spent with some specific films, visual ideas Hitchcock invented, who he made his films for, what defines a director-artist, and other very interesting things that are similar. One high point of the film for me is a moment when Hitchcock is telling Truffaut about a scene in one of Truffaut's films that he tells him that if he'd done the film, did the scene better, did it right, there wouldn't have to been any dialogue. And it reminded me that Hitchcock started in silent films and knows how to tell a story using only visuals. Another interesting part is Hitchcock explaining his troubles with actors, because it's one thing to read Hitchcock's famous slights about what he thinks of actors, but to hear Hitchcock's own voice speak about how dare Montgomery Clift question where the script tells him to look because he isn't sure his character would do that, to really just hear the disgust in Hitchcock's voice as he's trying to explain, you're looking there so I can give the geography of the scene to the viewers, and how dare you, question my choice of where I tell you to look. It's a great documentary. It's actually just, even if you're not into film, this will really make you appreciate not just Hitchcock's films, but all films and directors, as he breaks down and explains why things are done a certain way, and you realize just how much Hitchcock invented of the language of film. It's just really interesting to watch. And I'm reading up on it when I was done. So the director, Kent Jones, said that Brian De Palma, who's infamously one of the most famous Hitchcock, people who've copied Hitchcock style and such, or tries to, De Palma declined to participate in the documentary because of a film called De Palma that came out in 2015, basically saying Noah Baumbach and Jake Paltrow did a movie about De Palma, and they worked in that film for about 4 years, and De Palma wanted to save what he thought about Hitchcock for their movie, which is unfortunate because I think he would have had a lot to have said about this book and this documentary. Also, Catherine Bigelow was asked to speak in this film, but she declined, saying she was too shy. There are some other directors who didn't speak as much or didn't stand out to me as much in the film as the others I mentioned in it, but if you look on IMDb, you can see a list of all those who participated.